Hey, hey. I don't know what's going on here today. Just got out of the shower, kind of.
Hey, good for you. You're way ahead of me.
I've got to take a shower in the morning or else it is bad news for everyone. Oh, Janine's coming in. Where are you, Stephanie?
I'm just at our dining room table.
Oh, I feel like you have a different backdrop today.
Yes, I've in the past been down in my office.
Gotcha. Hey, our special guest is here. Hey, Janine. Hey, Marianne.
Hi,
Lauren, I'm so glad you're here too.
thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled that you said yes. So
No,
this
this is really exciting. Actually, I have a card I need to write, so I was like, this is perfect timing for me.
Okay, good. I feel like every single card designer will always have a card that they need to write, or like multiple cards that they need to write, probably more than most people, which is ironic.
It's true. It's like what they say about like the shoemaker's children have no shoes, something like that.
Yes, yes. The card makers have no cards sent. Yeah. Lauren, I know you're muted, so I always like to make it awkward and ask someone a question when they're muted. Are
It's
you?
totally fine. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, I always say this is like a very casual, friendly group. I mean, if you think about it, everyone that's in here, they're the nicest people in the world because they just want to send more cards to people. So it's like such a feel-good group. Were you following Janine? Is that how you heard about this workshop? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I got to meet her once at her signing in Boston. My sister was living there, and I just happened to I was already a fan, and then she was having a book signing, so I got to meet her. She probably doesn't even remember this, but it was so special for me.
Oh,
And so, yeah, she had shared the event, and then I discovered you, and now I'm a fan of both of you.
you're the sweetest
Yay, I love
person.
that. Thank you so much for joining and for coming to the signing.
Janine, how many book signings did you do? I mean, your book came out last year, right?
Came out in February, so it's been almost a year. I only did two in-person ones because of COVID. So
Mhm.
my publisher wasn't actually doing any in-person book events. I think I was maybe the first one that they were testing out. So I did one um, in New York at You and Me Books, and then one in Somerville at Davis Squared.
Oh, wow. So it's extra special, Lauren, that you guys got to meet in person. That's cool. Yeah, I just feel like this year has flown by, but at the same time, it's just been dragging. It's like it feels like you launched your book a while ago, maybe because I've gone back to it so many times, just so you know. And Marianne, like a lot of us in our community have talked about it because it's just so helpful. It's so handy. Like you can go to any page at any time and take something from it. But at the same time, so it feels like you came out with it a long time ago, but yeah, it's only been February. It's kind of
It
nutty.
does feel like a long time ago. I agree.
Yeah,
Glad to hear that it's been a helpful reference.
yeah, yeah. Um, can I ask what your surgery? You have hand surgery tomorrow, right?
I do. Yeah, it's pretty routine as hand surgery goes, but I fell. I mean, it's like I fell off a chair at home and
Oh no.
yeah, so let me be your warning. Don't climb up on a chair with wheels to get something.
Oh,
Um,
jeez. Which I've done many
which
times, I will say.
everybody does. So now I'm like, no, don't do
Don't
it.
do it. Oh, jeez.
Um, and so it's my left hand, thankfully, and I'm
Okay.
right-handed. But I tore two ligaments in my thumb, so I'm getting some pins put in.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, I think they do it all the time. So, but it's still surgery, so it's fine and also not
Yeah.
ideal.
I'm so glad it's your left hand. So glad. Well, I know that there are a couple other people that are planning on coming that are so excited, including a few people that actually specialize in, well, I wouldn't say they specialize in grief, but one member of our community, she has clients that go to her because of grief. Like her story is just amazing, and what she's done with it to help other people is really admirable. we have a couple of people in our community that are just really excited for this workshop. If they can't be here live, I know they're going to watch the replay. But yeah, so let's get started because I feel like we have a lot to cover in 1 hour. Janine saw my outline and I really tried to keep it simple, but I was like, that's too good to not mention. That's too good. We have to do that, and so I'm going to try my best to keep it simple, but Marianne, Stephanie, they know I get like puppy dog energy at these things because they just like make my entire week. So anyway, let's just put in the chat, I know there's only a few of us for now, but I would love to hear, just to kick this off and kind of have an icebreaker, tell me the last thing that made you smile or laugh. I would love to hear, especially since we're going to do some more series cards today. I just thought it'd be fun to kick that off. I'll tell you, last night, my family, we're on vacation right now, and my husband and I thought we thought we'd try to be cool and show our daughter that we could like catch blueberries in our mouth, We were so bad at it and so off, like it was all over the place. The last one, he got closer to me, but it was like a line drive and it just hit me square on in the forehead. It was just one of those things that made me laugh so hard. Oh, Lauren, that's so awesome. Oh my gosh, that all the workers brought their dogs. That's a cool place to work. Fingers crossed for you. Stephanie,
Yeah,
I
good
know you
luck.
don't have to think too hard about that. Yeah. Um, Marianne, I just feel like you're smiling all the time. So Marianne's like our resident card writing pro, by the way. She's so good. She's so sweet. Janine, do you have one?
I'm thinking, I don't, well, the first thing that came out, it's not really a story, but I have been like running around just trying to get like everything done, just to get all my
Yeah.
orders out. My sister's here like helping me sleeve cards before I can't use my hand. And so
Yeah.
I've just been kind of running on fumes. And I was like walking home last night from the studio. It was like 9:30 and I was really tired. And then I was like, I'm just gonna call like my friend Jess and see what she's up to. And so we just talked for 30 minutes on my way home. And it wasn't like anything, just chit chat, kind of like writing these cards, but it was so nice. And I felt just like so energized and so grounded by our conversation. And I was like, it's just like, it's so accessible. I have to remember that like all it takes is a phone call.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful share. I'm so glad I asked that question. That just makes me want to call up one of my best friends or one of my sisters. That's a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, there we go, Stephanie. I'm glad that you added one. Someone dancing the 5-minute splits. That's amazing. That's so great. I want to do that too. All these fun
Actually,
things.
like dances has like choreography to the music track, and then she has like different choreography to the lyrics, and then like they're side by side, and it just cracks me up. It kind of mimics how my brain works too. It's like
Yeah.
two parallel tracks that somehow mesh together, but they look off when they're separate.
Yeah.
I felt very
Stephanie,
seen.
this is actually, I was going to ask you to unmute anyway because you are our giveaway winner. So way to go. You tell me what 3 cards you want. I'm going to send them your way. Congrats. And I'm so happy to hear that you were the random winner picked because I know you're going to use them and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you let me know whenever you get a chance.
Okay. Thanks.
So Janine, I'm going to read your bio here because I feel like, by the way, it's a mashup bio that I put together because you have so many things to offer and I could start anywhere, but I tried to condense it. So just bear with me here. Just for those of you that don't know Janine's background, even though how could you not? Because I've been blabbing about her like crazy. Okay. Janine, welcome. And thank you again. Honestly, thank you for doing this. This is so important. Just really happy you're here. So Janine Kwoh is the owner, artist, and one-person assembly line behind Kwohtations. And I love that name, by the way. It's Kwoh, as you might have guessed. And that's her stationery company and letterpress print and design studio. Kwohtations is an ever-evolving collection of greeting cards and gifts that reflect and celebrate a diversity of identities and life experiences, always with humor and empathy. So much empathy. Janine's hope is that others will recognize some of themselves in what she creates and feel a bit more seen, more connected, and less alone. It's also worth mentioning that one way Janine does this is by hand painting the skin tone of each character on her cards according to her customers' preference when they purchase them, which is incredible. And I feel like that's the ultimate commitment to celebrating diversity and helping others feel seen. So I really respect that you do that. She's also the author of Welcome to the Grief Club, which I have right here, in which she draws on her experiences with the unexpected loss of her partner when they were both in their late 20s. Welcome to the Grief Club to me, I have to say, Janine, is like, it's like Untamed by Glennon Doyle for grief specifically. I feel like you don't have to read it front to back, straight through. You can open it up, like I mentioned, to any page at any time for what I feel like is a pretty prolific take on very specific parts of grief that I haven't seen addressed elsewhere. And they could be that grief is surprising, it's confusing, it's brutal, it's funny sometimes, and also very bizarre. And I feel like you have provided this ability for a reader of your book to feel 1,000 times more seen after they read it. Like that's how I felt when I read Untamed, and so that's what I kept thinking and going back to with the Grief Club. Welcome to the Grief Club. And so you'll feel lighter if you haven't read it yet. I feel like you're going to feel more understood. You'll feel more understanding of others, and honestly, I have felt like a better human for reading it. I just feel more prepared and compassionate for what life is ultimately going to throw at us, right? So Janine, you currently live in Brooklyn, New York, but you consider home to be wherever your friends are. And I love that too. Let me get you back on my screen here. Okay, so welcome. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we can make this work. I feel like we started talking, I don't know, maybe back in February. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, we did. As soon as I was like, oh my gosh, she's coming out with a book too. And welcome in, Laura. We just read Janine's bio and we're just getting started kind of. But I've been wanting to have you on here in this community or just to do something with for a long time. I feel like you are your goals for me. You are, I just so respect your collection of cards and how you have the ability to, like, your illustrations are beautiful, but yet you can touch on the hardest things in a way that no one else can, I think. And you just really put yourself out there. You pour your heart into all that you do while helping others feel seen. You constantly have other people in mind. And I just think your work and everything you do is so beautiful. So
thank you. Thank you for such a kind introduction. And I'm so glad to hear that the book helped you feel more seen, because that was really the whole point of it. And I wanted it to feel like talking to a friend rather than talking to a grief expert. And so I'm glad that landed.
yeah, you absolutely nailed it. Nailed it. So usually with these workshops, Lauren, you haven't been with us yet. For anyone else watching the replay, usually we start with a way to pour into ourselves before we pour into others, and also just to kind of get warmed up a little bit. And so, Janine, I would actually love to ask you for this kind of warm up prompt, because I would love for us to write just a simple note, or just it could be on a napkin, it could be on a scrap piece of paper, just something to ourselves related to maybe a hard thing that we're going through. And it could be really small. I mean, it could be the fact that you have hand surgery tomorrow and you have to put your business on hold. It could be something small to something huge, but I would love to write a note to ourselves. And so, Janine, my question to you is, what would be, if you could go back to when this whole journey started, what would be something that you would have told yourself early on?
In relation to what I'm, like, a difficult thing I'm going through now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this prompt, and I do think I'm going to write to myself for hand surgery, because it's been looming on my mind. And I have like a stack of misprinted cards. So I was like, I'm going to give myself permission to like use an
Yes.
ugly card.
Yes,
Um,
that's funny. I had this in my outline. I actually I want to challenge you all to use, I say like your fuggliest card. That was like 20 years ago, a trendy word, and I still love it. I love the word fugly. Grab your worst card, the one that you've been hanging on to the longest, or the misprint, whatever it is. Use
yeah,
that for this prompt.
so
Yeah, let's do it.
I like this card, but it's a misprint, and it's like a little metal, and it says "made it through some real hard shit." So that's the one I'm gonna
Yes,
today.
perfect.
Um, and I think I would tell myself to give myself some grace. I think
Hmm.
that applies in a lot of situations. I feel I'm anxious about the surgery, but I've been feeling honestly like really dumb. Like I fell off a chair because I was, being irresponsible. But we make so many decisions every day, and sometimes they are fine, and sometimes they don't, and we just like can't be perfect and do the right smart thing all the time. So I think
Exactly. Yeah.
I gotta, in addition to preparing for surgery and preparing for recovery, just gotta have to let go of the guilt
Mhm.
around it.
That's perfect. That applies for so many things. Okay, let's just take a couple minutes, even just like 2 or 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be a whole lot, but let's just write a card to ourselves. If you're going through a hard thing, if you have already gone through it and maybe you want to go back and tell yourself something that you didn't take the time to say before, let's just go ahead and do that.
Now I'll just add that I find it easier to write to myself if I'm writing to myself as a friend, because I feel like
Yes.
I have much more patience and love for my friends sometimes.
We have talked about that in these workshops before. Isn't that funny and also twisted that it is that way? Like why is it so much easier usually to tell a friend all the wonderful things about them, but when we turn the mirror on ourselves, it's so much harder. I don't know, but yeah, so if you need to, that's a really great tip. Write as if you're writing to a friend. Feel free to mute me if I'm just going to be distracting and if it will take away from you writing this. But if you need some ideas, Janine, I tab this page where you have note to self. It's okay to rest. If you need some ideas on how to finish out your card or letter or napkin scribbled to yourself, whatever you're writing on, I love this because, yeah, I'll just read part of it. So, note to self, it is okay to rest. Grief is not a sprint to the finish line, it's a lifelong one person relay race, which I love how you put that. In order to keep going, you need to put down the baton once in a while and take a break, rest until you feel like you're able to pick it back up again. So she then gives some examples of just, of course, different ways to rest, whether it's sleep or just lying down if you can't sleep. Lose yourself in a bad TV show. That is like my go-to, or a good book. Walk around your neighborhood, hang out with friends. Welcome any momentary relief with open arms and without guilt. So anything that resonated with you in there, or if it helped you think of a way that you could rest, you can add that to your note. Okay, I'll try to finish that one up. And again, these workshops are super casual. If you ever just want to mute me, like if you need to zone out and you're really like into the card that you're writing, go for it. All of this is for you and to help you send the damn cards. So whatever that means, like if that seriously means just logging in, we've had members do that before where they're just having like a horrible day and they just log in here because they know it's like such a good vibe place, and they just want to listen in, and that's all they do. Great. We also have people that will write somehow. I'm not one of these people, like 6 or 7 cards within the hour. More power to you. I've never been that kind of person, but I love that. You know, it's just whatever makes you feel good and whatever helps you feel more connected. Does anyone feel like sharing what they wrote? My usual, like my bravest ones, I see you're still sort of writing. But Lauren, huge bonus points to you if you feel like sharing.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I wrote 2 notes to myself just on scratch paper. One is the timeline of life is bullshit.
Yes.
And the other one is you were so brave to go, you were so brave to come back.
Oh my gosh, my hair just stood up on my arms. That was,
I love
wow.
that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Janine, you talk a lot about timelines in your book too, and how there really isn't one. There's no linear path through grief. Do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I wish there were, right? Like, how nice would that be if you're like, I'm here, here's where I have to go through, and and here's when I'll be done. But it just doesn't work like that. I think it's so person dependent, and it's just, at least in my experience, it's just like a big jumble, and like you don't know how you're going to feel 1 week, 1 month, 1 day to the next, and you just kind of have to be open to that.
Yeah. Which is so rude of life to give us that rule. Like everything should fall in place. Come on, life. I'm sorry. I totally forgot. So we have another big giveaway that I forgot to mention at the beginning. Janine has so graciously agreed, by the way, to give a signed copy of her book to the winner. And so we kind of chit-chatted and just decided to, at any point in this workshop, would love it if you guys took a picture of our workshop, unless if you're not okay with having your picture shared on social media, just you can message me, let me know. You can message me privately, and I'll switch this up. But take a picture of our workshop or of the cards that you've written today and tag both Janine and myself. And would you rather have people tag Janine Kwoh or welcome or Kwohtations or welcome to the grief club? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter, either one, whichever one you
Okay.
want.
Okay. Just make sure to tag both of us in it. And do so by, we'll say tomorrow night. Okay. I'm going to put some added pressure on here for people to watch the replay and stuff too. Okay. You guys good? And I'll randomly pick a winner to get a signed copy of Janine's book, which you should already have by now. But anyway. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Thank you for sharing that. That was God, Lauren, that was so good. You're an all-star already. I would love to, so the next thing we usually do in these workshops, we do what I love to call a rapid fire love fest, which is like let's start going through the cards in our stash some more, but also let's not overthink it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn out novel or even like a paragraph. It can just be something very, very simple, right? And because of the mail that you've gotten or the love notes that you've received, that something like that can totally turn your day around, right? Like it can totally make your day. And so I just want to encourage you to keep that in mind as we write a rapid fire love fest to someone. And if you brought a list of names of people that you've been thinking about lately, you could pick someone at the top. It could be someone random, but I want to, just kind of sticking with the theme. And while we have Janine's, awesome expertise and help and insight, I think it would be great to write a card to someone who's grieving or going through an especially hard time. And I love an example that she has in her book of something that could be used for a rapid fire love fest. And it's towards the beginning. It's just this guy right here. And it says, "This is the fucking worst and so incredibly hard. I'm really sorry you're going through this." That is so succinct and so validating and often all we need to hear, right? I just love that. So that can be an example. And Janine, of course, if you have any other suggestions for a rapid fire love fest here, go for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing, I think the most important thing is to just send the card like we're doing today. I think it's really easy to get hung up on like, I want to say the right thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I've been on both sides of it, and I still sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say, and I don't want to make it worse. But I honestly think just the act of like getting a card, like knowing that someone took the time to write something and send it is meaningful. It's probably like the most meaningful part, I think. But I do have like some other ideas if that's helpful. I have actually this little like what to write in a condolence card scene that I made. And the first one is, so it just has like a couple lines in it. So the first one is, acknowledge the supreme shittiness of the situation. So like the little person was saying that you were, I think someone honestly acknowledging what's going on and like how hard it must be for me is more comforting than like a platitude. Just someone who's like, I see you, I see what you're going through. The second one is give them permission to grieve. So validate what they're feeling. It's okay to be a wreck. It's okay to be grieving. It's okay to be feeling sad or mad or however it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
The third one is let them know you're sticking around while giving them space. So something I like to write at the end of cards is something like, no need to respond. I'll check in on you later. Because I feel like that takes the pressure off of like them feeling like they then have like another action step to do.
Yes. I'm just adding these in the chat just so we don't forget.
Something else I like to do is to share a memory. If you knew the person who passed, or even if you heard about them from the person that you're writing to, I always think that's really nice. And it can be something as simple as like, they had a really great smile, or I remember this one time they helped me, or, they were so kind. I think it's just like really lovely to hear that, and also to feel like other people are helping to collectively hold their memories for you. Affirm what they may be questioning. So examples like they loved you, you were so important to them, like things like that they may not, in their grief, they may be questioning. include a specific offer of help. So I think, I mean, I do this too. I say like, let me know if I can do anything, but sometimes it can be helpful to make it easier for them to say yes instead of having to think of the things that they need.
Yeah,
So things
like,
like,
hey, I would love to bring dinner over on Thursday night at this
yeah,
time. Is that
exactly.
okay? Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Or like, I'm around to like walk your dog, or like, let me know if you need someone to do your laundry, or like, you know. And then, so mostly I think like anything is good. Like anything you want to say is the right thing to say. And then, but then I do like a short list of things like not to say.
Yes. Which I love, the ones that you sprinkle throughout your book are they, I mean, I don't know if it was your intention, but like a lot of them made me laugh. I was like, because they're so cringy, right? They're so cringy.
I'm always like, I don't want to scare people from not writing them. So I'm always like, just write it. Like,
Yeah.
you won't say the wrong thing, but also don't say these things.
Yes.
So like, generally, I would say like, don't make comparisons. They're just like not very helpful and can feel minimizing. So like, I know how you feel because, you know, my cat died or I had a breakup or something like that is generally, I would say, could be taken the wrong way, even if it was meant with the best of intentions.
Yeah.
Putting a positive spin on it can be tricky too. So like
Mm.
everything happens for a reason, I feel like is universally everyone's least favorite.
That I just flipped open to this graphic. It's one of my very favorites in your entire book. And it says, fuck you, universe, and anyone who tells you that this is all part of a bigger plan. Because if it is, it's a shitty fucking plan, and I'd like to punch whoever's plan this is. That's so good.
Which is a greeting card
Yeah.
I have. So,
So great.
You know, it could be helpful for the right person, but I think if you're not sure, it's like one of those things to stay away from.
Yeah.
And then
Because
along
it's
those,
okay for it to be, yes, there might be positives and there's going to be growth and all, but like leave that to them maybe. Yeah.
yeah,
Or maybe not like right now, like when you're still in it, you don't have perspective yet.
Right.
So
definitely.
Yes.
And then along those lines, I think just like things that can downplay what they're going through can also be hard. You know, things like you'll be okay, or like it could be worse. Even if it's like trying to give them perspective or trying to cheer them up, I feel like that can also feel minimizing unintentionally.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned this in your book, but I love the power of open-ended questions. I remember when I went through postpartum, I was hearing a lot of like, oh, is the baby sleeping through the night yet? Aren't you on cloud nine? You know, the closed-ended questions versus how's your sleep? How are you doing? You know, just I'd say there's so much power in an open-ended question, and it just gives them that permission to say how they feel, like what they're really thinking. So thank you gosh, these are so practical and so useful. I so appreciate you being here, Janine. Does anyone feel like sharing what they wrote for their Rapid Fire Love Fest, just to kind of round this one out?
I will.
Yes.
And so I appreciated everything that you said, and I actually like incorporated some of it as I was writing. You said something and it flowed right into my card.
I
So
love when that happens.
thank you. But I just want to also acknowledge and touch on that grief. I deal with a lot of grief with a lot of people who it's not because someone died. And
Mhm.
so there's so many other ways and reasons why we grieve. And to just remember that so many people are going through a lot of loss and a lot of grief for many other reasons. And so not really related, I just have been having this friend on my mind that I wanted to send a card to for a while and started writing to her. And then you started talking all about the grief. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm writing to her because she's in a really big space of grief. She's been through breast cancer. surgeries and treatments and is awaiting a second surgery next year. So, you know, there's a lot of loss and a lot of grief and a lot of change for a lot of different reasons. So I was writing to her, so it fit in with the theme, even though it wasn't for a past loved one. And so it says, I wanted to drop you a note because I think of you all the time and wanted to send you a little encouragement. You are missed in the group. We have this group that we all talk in. I say that not to put any pressure or guilt, but to let you know that you are loved and important. It's nice when you can pop in, but when you can't, that's okay too. I just want to acknowledge the supreme shittiness of your situation. Thank you, Janine, for that. To let you know that I see you. I know some days are just too much. You are a light and you will keep shining bright. I love you so much.
Oh my
It's
gosh,
really
Laura.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for that reminder too. Because I fully admit I've been locked in on Janine on your book and just of course losing a loved one. And Laura, I really wanted to make that point today too. And thank you for reminding me that of course grief looks so many different ways. It comes in different forms, different shapes. I think we often, you know, you might be grieving the life that you envisioned having, that suddenly is maybe taken away or altered, or, you know, anything that can go against a certain expectation or hope that you had. So there's a lot of grief in those situations too. So I thank
Which
you.
is my experience in a lot of my community, in that I have a child with special needs, and a lot of people that I work with and friends that I have children with disabilities or special needs. And there's so much ongoing grief in our entire life, you know, because you're reminded on an ongoing basis of the life that you didn't have, the milestones that your child doesn't meet year after year after year. It's not just when they're born and they have this diagnosis, or when something happens and they have this diagnosis. It's forever. This cycle of grief and loss. It's never a straight line, like Janine said. It's just this cycle that keeps renewing.
Right. That is, I want everyone to hear that. Debbie said that in the chat. I wish everyone could hear what you just shared, Laura. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's such a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I was actually, one of the cards that I was going to write today is for a friend who's grieving the end of a relationship. So I had that in my mind, but didn't say it out loud. So it's such a good point to bring to the group.
Isn't it amazing that we have this space here where we can share things like that, and it's just so welcomed. It's just so surrounded by love. I just love that about our group so much. Thank you, that every single one of you, for contributing to that feeling. Janine, this is what I do. I get so excited and then I just gab, and then I'm like, that wasn't the point of this. I wanted everyone to get to know Janine better. So I've done it again. Before we get into our main prompt of the day, which we usually spend some more time on, I just want to talk more about you and your book. And also, I know that some of you guys have questions. We'll do some Q&A at the end. I do want to make sure that we get some cards written, but so if you have any questions for Janine specifically, just put them in the chat. I'll come back to them, make sure they're, you know, that we talk about them. But yeah, Janine, I just want to go a little bit deeper on your book. And can I ask you, because I haven't heard you talk about this specifically, you didn't have to write a book. Like you went through enough, and you didn't have to write a book for everyone, and yet you did. And I just am so in awe of you for doing that. What was it that made you decide to write the book? Like, what was it that made you feel like you had to?
Oh, I don't think I've ever been asked that question before.
Really?
Yeah, it's a good.
I just think it's so selfless of you. Like, that's such a giving thing to do. It amazes me. So I was just curious.
I mean, to be honest, I did it partly for myself. When I was thinking about, so I had been making sympathy cards, and I was approached by my publisher to see if I wanted to write a book. And I did stop to think, like, oh, is this like something I want to do? It's going to be sort of like delving back into the depths of my grief for this. And I said yes for two reasons. One is I did want to make something that could be helpful for others. For me, the experience of grief, even though I have such a wonderful support system, was so incredibly lonely and isolating. You know, my partner Nap died when we were 28, and he was the first person I loved who died. And I didn't know many other people my age who had sort of had any significant loss. I didn't know anyone who had lost a partner. And I felt like just like so like everything that's in the book, like
Mhm.
all of the questions and all of the fears and doubts in the book are mine or were mine. And I just had no idea how it was going to go. And I felt like so many people go through this, right? And it feels like we're all going through it alone. Like, why don't we just talk about it so at least we,
Yeah,
we
like
don't
you've
feel
got
like
these
we're the only
designated
ones.
tunnels that you're each assigned and you're going to go down it by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have this illustration in the book that's like people standing in a subway station that's like Muck Street Station. Everyone is like thinking about their own grief by themselves and thinking that they're the only ones feeling or thinking this way. So I did want to like write something to just honestly talk about what the experience was like for me and what I think um, in ways I think could be relatable to other people, even though we all have different losses. But part of it is also because I did so much processing right after he died. Like I went to therapy, I went to group therapy, I made my cards, and I did like a really intense processing period. And then I kind of just stopped. Like once I was kind of like okay, I kind of just stopped thinking about it. And I knew that there were other things that like I hadn't dealt with, and I thought the book would be a way for me to do that. So the sections in the book about
Yeah, like what? Like what? Can
like
I?
yeah, like about fear, like hypervigilance of being terrified that something else is going to happen to someone else you love is something that I really struggle with. Like there's an illustration of someone like checking to see if people are alive, like while they're sleeping is like something I do often. But that's not really something that I had like truly acknowledged or like started to deal with for myself.
Yeah.
Like feelings of regret, like what if I had done this? Like what if I had said this? What if I had noticed this sooner? Um, Complicated relationships, like
I was just gonna say
someone
this.
who
Yeah, that's one of my favorite sections of your book that I hadn't seen anywhere else is that I just think it's like you're fearless and you're doing it again for other people because yep, you have a whole section on that. Like for when it's complicated, when you had, yeah, a complex relationship with someone that you lost, or like your grief around something is it's around likely a human, but yet humans are flawed. You can have them up here and at the same time be like, man, they always interrupted me, or like whatever thing
right.
it is. And I just so appreciated that you really took time on that section. Yeah.
Yeah, it was those were the last sections that I wrote because I knew they were in there from the beginning. Like I knew I needed to or that I wanted to talk about them, but they were the hardest for me to write because they weren't really ones that I had really thought about or wanted to think about before.
Yeah.
So the book, yeah, I mean, I wanted to be helpful for others, and also it was also for myself.
Oh, thank you for writing it. Did you because I know you, and I know that when you come up with certain cards you pull from people's experiences too. And so did you get a lot of validation that what you were feeling, feeling like you were the only one, and that like the reasons behind why it felt so lonely, that was the actually ironically the common feeling for people? Like did you get that validation and
I
sort of
did.
motivation from others to write it?
Yeah, so even before, I started writing the book, because I make sympathy cards, I've talked to a lot of people about their losses. So I feel like I had a general sense of some of the themes or some of the feelings that could be relatable. And then I really wanted the book to feel inclusive. And so
Yeah.
I shared drafts of it with people in my community who have had different losses, or have had different losses in terms of like their relationship to the person who died, how they died, the length of time that has passed. So I really wanted it. So I did sort of test it to see if there was anything that didn't resonate, if there was anything that was unintentionally triggering or minimizing that I wasn't thinking about, because I sort of just have my own loss as like the starting point.
Hmm.
So I did sort of through that process feel like there was enough in the book that could be relatable no matter like where you're coming from.
Yeah, yes. Okay. That's a perfect kind of segue into what I want to share for ahead of our main prompt. And if you guys want to get started on it at any time, go for it. But I do want to write a card to, I guess, the person that you would consider needing it the most right now. Let's do a really heartfelt card to that person. The most being, not that it's a competition, but just someone who you think would like really, really appreciate getting a card at this point in their life, like sometime in the next week or so. And I love, Janine, I could pick any page out of your book to share. But I just wanted to share this it's one of the last pages. I feel like this would be just the ultimate heartfelt note to receive. For anyone going through something really hard, I think this is like the ultimate note that they could receive. And so, to Laura's point, it doesn't have to be someone who has recently lost a loved one. It can be just really, this applies to anyone going through a hard thing. So I wanted to share this, and then Janine, I would love if you wanted to add anything after, that would be helpful. Because we'll spend about 8-10 minutes on this next one, okay? So, yep, so this is towards the end. It says, there's never only one correct path. Any path you choose will be windy and bumpy at times and longer than you think it will be. Any path you choose will also lead you to hidden wonders and spectacular views that you wouldn't have known otherwise. You will meet people and have experiences that will change your life in both wonderful and hard ways. All of this will be incredibly valuable. You also don't have to stay on a path just because you started out on it. You can always get on a new path, stay on it for a long or short while, and then go on another different path. The journey really is the whole point, so pick a direction and go. Whichever one you choose, you are already on the right path. And I love that so much. I just think this is so validating, and every type of permission slip you could give someone on their unique journey. And yeah, I just thought that was really beautiful. Jenny, every page of your book is like a permission slip for something. Seriously.
That's what I wanted it to be, like a giant permission slip. That was what I was going for.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading that. I forgot about this, but I actually wrote that to myself when I was debating quitting my job to do Kwohtations full time. So kind of to your point, Laura, like I didn't actually write it about grief specifically, but it was a time of change and transition, and my grief played into the decision to leave my job, but it was really about me struggling with leaving this sort of safe path that I had been on for 10 years to like
you were
knock
in
myself
finance
off.
before, right?
So I was in finance for a few years, and then I worked at a nonprofit that helps fund other nonprofits. It's a venture philanthropy fund. So I was working there, and I had been there for maybe 6 or 7 years and kind of like had worked my way up. And I decided to quit and make cards full time. And I had been making cards on the side, but hadn't really considered, making it my full-time job. And so I wrote that on the train because I was commuting between New York and Boston to myself. So.
Oh my gosh. I did not know that, I swear.
So it is a letter. I don't know. I forgot that it originally was a letter, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think, yep, Stephanie, I agree with you that it would feel so good to hear that for ourselves, because we're just bombarded with advice and other people's opinions, when the reality is that we don't have any idea what someone else should or shouldn't do, because we're not them and we don't have the same relationship to the people in their life that they have. There's just so many variables. So I think that's just, the common thread is just giving each other permission, just giving others permission to choose what they want to choose, to go down the path that they want to go down. I just think that that's such a beautiful thing. So let's just, I'll stop talking for a bit. Jesus, I keep doing this. And give you guys like 10-ish minutes. I'm going to really try to keep this to 1 hour, but I also know this is a really important card to write. And Janine, write that card that you need to write. I'm going to go ahead and just put in the chat parts of what I just read, and also just excerpts that I think might be helpful for this prompt. If you feel like you're getting stuck, you can turn to the chat. And then Janine, if you want to do the same, great, but you've already added enough here. So, okay, let's come back to this in like about 8 minutes, right at 11. Last thing I'll say, I swear. I have a playlist for our community of all instrumental songs. So if you're someone who likes to write while listening to something, if it gets too quiet, go ahead and look in the chat and I'll put the Spotify playlist link in there. Okay, as we're sort of finishing up, and maybe you need more time after the workshop to finish this one, all good. I do want to read one more excerpt from Janine's book because I just think this is so beautiful and maybe something that you can add to the card that you're writing. I put most of this in the chat too, so don't feel like you have to scribble down the notes really quickly. It's this page. It's just such a perfect way to round out your book. It says, grief and love last a lifetime. We grieve because we have loved. Your love for them doesn't disappear because they died, but you have to learn to carry that love differently now, in your memories and conversations and through rituals or however you choose to honor them. It shapes the life you make for yourself and how you love others. The persistence of grief is evidence of the love that still exists. How hard and painful and lucky it is that we have experienced love that lasts for a lifetime. That's beautifully written, Janine. That's what I'm talking about. It's like the untamed for grief. It really is. It's like, whoa, you read something like that and you're like, that is something that I hope everyone can read and take with them. That's what a perspective shift. How long did it take you to realize that? Can I ask you that? Is that, I mean,
I don't know. It took me at least 5 years. I think it
yeah,
took me 5 years out for it to feel, I don't know, it's like I always want to stay away from any sort of silver lining, how lucky to have this perspective talk, because I
yeah.
feel like it's not worth it.
I appreciate that.
But at the same time, I do feel different than I did 6 years ago, right after, where I couldn't even like bear to think of like anyone saying, how lucky you were to have him or how lucky you were to have this love, because I was just like, it was so painful. But now that I'm a little bit further out, that is how I feel. Like, how amazing is it to have loved someone?
Yeah.
And I do think the persistence of grief, as hard as it is evidence of like how much love there still is, and like how deeply and strongly we can love. Like, I have surprised myself in that.
Mhm.
And I do feel lucky in that.
I think that's why I was so drawn to that page because, yes, not necessarily to say to like in a card, like you are, how lucky are you? I should probably like clarify, but simply just we grieve because we have loved. Like I just think that is, yeah, how you put it is perfect. It's proof of how deep our connection was with that person and how much we cared for them. The grief is that proof, as shitty as it is. I just appreciated you sharing that. I feel like we actually got through most of what I had hoped to get through today, so proud of myself for that. Let me just double check here. Janine, was there anything that you, like if you could just like shout from the rooftops to all of us in here, anyone watching the replay, like what would you just from your book, from being a card designer, like what's one thing that you wish everyone could just hear you loud and clear on?
I mean, I think most of the book just boils down to there's like truly no right or wrong way to grieve. Right? So just grieve for however long in whichever ways you need to. Like, I think it's so hard. Like, it's such a hard thing to go through. And on top of that, to feel like you're not doing it correctly, or you're grieving too much, or you're too little, it's just like too much. So I just like wish everyone would just take that top layer off, and just know that it's just going to be how it's going to be, and it's going to be different for everyone. And I think, one loss to the next will be different.
Mm-hmm.
Just take care of yourself the best you can.
Well, I have nothing else to add. If any of you have questions for Janine, go for it. Just unmute. You can put them in the chat, but also just go. Yeah, Marianne, just go for it.
Okay, I was gonna maybe put it in the chat, but I guess because I have a friend who has been going through the grieving process for the last year and a half, so it's still pretty fresh, and but it's surprising. And so I was just curious, Jeannie, I don't know if you can share or want to share, but one time I just texted my friend on the fly and said, "Hey, can I come up and grab some Queen Anne's lace out of your garden?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, come on up." And it was just so, I think, spur of the moment, and we didn't get sucked into a lot of the sort of same kinds of, obviously I love and I care about him very much. And, his wife died and we were super close and it was really hard. But I mean, we just kind of kept going around in circles. Was there ever a time in your process, or when did it hit you in the process when you were like, everybody, there's so many giving people around, and when, can I give back somehow, or, did you feel pressure to respond to other people after as you were in this grieving process? Because I kind of felt like maybe my friend was a little bit responding to that, but I wasn't, we didn't make a big deal out of it. I was just curious if that struck you at any point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it did. I'm not sure this is exactly the same situation, but I mean, I felt kind of two things. Like, one, I felt like I was taking up too much space, and maybe that's like a separate issue of like feeling like you're a burden and feeling like I'm taking up like all the energy and I don't have like time or like the capacity to help other people. And that was hard for me. And like, luckily, like none of it was really coming externally. It was just like my own internal fears. And that's also, I think, something we have to let go, because like I say, it all evens out over a lifetime. Like sometimes you're going to need more help and sometimes someone else in your life is going to. So it's never 50-50. It's like 80-20, then 70-30, but it evens out. I don't know if that's like actually that's really what you were talking about. I do think that so I struggle with that, and I think eventually, as I kind of started to even out, I do feel like I had more capacity to like listen to my friends, like help them, and that was actually really helpful for me. I didn't really feel like I needed to, but it felt more like a nice normalization of like, oh, okay, I kind of am able to reciprocate a bit, or I'm able to help them out with something that they need, was actually a very nice feeling for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the whole even Steven thing, because I think that is something that, well, yeah, I just think that's a really interesting perspective.
And sometimes
That
it
you
is nice to have someone come over and not talk about it. And I know it's tricky because I think everyone's different. And I know what I wanted was like different minute to minute, so probably hard for other people to navigate. And sometimes, it's nice to talk about, to have like someone be like, let's talk about it. And sometimes it's nice to just not talk about it because you're constantly thinking about it, and just have someone be like, let's talk about flowers, or let's talk about, like what we're going to make for dinner. Like that's also can be a really nice, I think, like an emotional and mental break.
Janine, did you ever have someone just blatantly ask you, or just put out like, do you feel like talking about things, or tell me about him, or just something just thrown out there, I guess? And if they did, was that helpful? Did it throw you off? Was it like too much? But I don't know. I'm just thinking of the theme of having permission for things. I would gather that it might be nice to have, like, to know that you've got a friend that is willing to hear anything and everything, like whenever you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
But would that also be, is that too much, I guess?
Again, I think it's really person dependent, but I think it's helpful. I think it's nice to ask, to say like, hey, I'm happy to talk about it. I'm here to listen if you want to talk about it. But also, if you don't want to talk about it, we can talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of takes the guessing out of it. And sometimes I think, at least for me, sometimes I don't even know what I want until someone asks me, and I'm like, do I want to talk about it, or do I not want to talk about it? And so I think it is helpful to just be like, I'm happy to do either. Like, what are you feeling? Or like, and they might say, I don't know, which is fine. You can like try one and then like try the other. Um, I think, I think like sometimes just asking like what they need can be a good starting point.
Yeah, I mean, I know I for sure get in my head about all kinds of things when I could just ask someone. It's like so much more efficient, right? And that applies
Yeah,
to
I mean, I
everything.
say all these things, but I also like struggle with them. It's like always easier to tell someone else what to do.
I know, it goes back to like the mirror exercise or writing to someone versus ourselves. God. Uh, you actually had like I think you had a couple pages about you do, yeah, you talk grief reshuffles your relationships. I mean, it can be tricky, right? I mean, to be a neighbor, to be a close friend, and to be a family member who's unsure of how to address it, like things just get kind of shuffled up, right? And then I love that you go through different profiles of the types of relationships that you might have. You've got, the steadfast one. It's I'm coming over with snacks, wine and a movie, emotions. We can talk about it or not talk about it. The fumbling but good-hearted one, I feel like I fall into that category, and that's why I asked that question. But what about if we went dancing? What would that help? No, okay, we can just stay home too. We can talk. We don't have to talk. Like the well-meaning friend, the insensitive one. Thankfully, I don't think any of us here are that one, but maybe you compare or you minimize, right? The absent one, we've talked about that before. That hi, you reached my voicemail for the third time. Please leave a message after the beep, and I may or may not get back to you. I just so appreciate the deep dive that you have done on all the different aspects around grief. It's so hugely helpful, and just all the permission that you've given all of us as readers and those of us here. So I just want to say thank you more than anything, because I think that what you've done is such a gift.
Thank you. Thank you for reading. I mean, honestly, it makes me feel more seen and less alone. I know I wrote this like whole validating book on grief, but I also feel like I said, like I still struggle. Like those are the things that I need to hear, but I'm still working on internalizing some of those. And so knowing that it's relatable to others, like in turn helps me feel less alone.
Uh, uh, I'm really happy to hear that. Thanks for saying that. If anyone else has any other questions, here's your last call. But otherwise, let me check my notes here. Just make sure. Janine, I told you I was going to forget everything. That's why my notes are so intense all the time. Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, the last thing I had was just to remind you guys of the giveaway. I think that, yeah, you've heard me kind of gab about her book, but I feel like if you don't have her book already, it would be an amazing gift to anyone. I feel very fortunate that I haven't had like a sibling or someone like extremely close to me. We've all had someone, that we've loved before. We've all lost someone, but I think, not to be a downer, but it's going to happen. It's just I'm the youngest of 8 kids. Are you kidding me? I've got like the worst in line for what's ahead. Like that's going to suck, if all goes like according to plan. So I just feel like reading this, I feel a bit more prepared. Like I feel like I can grieve my way, So I just want to thank you for that. So anyway, so the giveaway, it's a book, but it's so much more than a book, as you guys know. So again, just take a picture either. Should we just do a little group picture right now? Let's all smile so we don't have like the one picture where you look great because you're taking it and everyone else is like that or writing or something like that. And then, yeah, post it, tag Janine and myself, and then you're entered and I'll pick a winner by tomorrow. Okay, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all right. Oh, I love our group. Okay, everyone. Janine, thank you again so much. This has just been really special. And thank you all of you for coming. Lauren, welcome to our community. So happy to have you guys here.
Thank you so much. Will you share that picture with us?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll
Cool.
put it in our community.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll
Thanks,
send a
Janine.
replay email out too. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you. All right. Well done, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.